I was maybe 4 minutes old when I met my adopted brother for the second time across 2 lifetimes. In the life before this one, he destroyed my older sister. Not with his hands at first, but with his mind. He could hear every thought she had, and she thought very loud. By the time she escaped him, her legs were broken and her sanity was gone. But I learned from her mistakes. So when he walked into the nursery with those cold gold eyes, I didn't scream inside my head. I didn't flinch. I opened my tiny newborn mind and I sent him a message as soft as a blanket. You look tired. You don't have to be alone anymore. And for the first time in his life, someone said exactly the right thing. The game started long before I was born. Or at least before I was born this time. My sister and I are both reincarnated, both fighting for one permanent spot in this world. The one who loses goes back to wherever we came from. The one who wins gets to stay forever. There is a king who watches. He calls himself the Warden, and he gave us a deadline. By our 18th birthday, one of us must return. The other gets to live. In my previous life, I was nobody special, just a girl who watched her sister get destroyed by a monster. But I paid attention. I learned that the monster wasn't just cruel. He was lonely. And loneliness is a much easier wound to exploit. So when I opened my eyes in this new body and saw my mother crying happy tears and my father holding my hand like I was made of gold, I didn't waste time being a baby. I started working. The first thing I did was map the territory. My mother's name is Serafina. She is a former ballerina turned philanthropist with a heart so big it practically leaks. She can hear thoughts. So can my father Marcus, who runs a global logistics empire. So can my adopted brother Darian and about half the household staff. The doctors and nurses cannot hear anything. That gave me a place to think freely. I learned all of this in my first week of life. Not bad for someone who still couldn't hold up their own head. My sister in this life is named Lyra. She was born 3 rooms away in the same hospital. Same day, same hour, different mother. Her new mother was a fading pop star named Celeste, who wanted a fashion accessory, not a child. By the time Lyra was 10 days old, Celeste had already abandoned her to the nurses. My mother, Serafina, heard about it, and her savior complex kicked in like a rocket.
"We have to help that baby," she said, cradling me against her chest. "She is all alone." I felt my tiny heart rate spike. No, absolutely not. But I couldn't think that too loud because my mother would hear me, so I thought something else. Mommy is so kind, but maybe that baby is sick. Maybe we should wait until she is stronger. My father, who was exhausted from a boardroom war, immediately latched onto the excuse. "Honey, let's rest first. We can check on her tomorrow." I bought myself one night. But I knew Lyra. I knew she would find a way into this house. She always did. The first time I saw her in this life, I was 11 days old. My mother had dressed me in a ridiculous pink bow bigger than my head and carried me down the hall to meet the abandoned baby. My father followed, looking uncomfortable. Darian followed, looking like a predator who had just smelled something interesting. Celeste, the pop star, was too busy screaming at someone on her phone about a canceled album cover to notice us. She waved her hand toward a bassinet in the corner like she was shooing away a fly. "Take her! I didn't sign up for this." My mother walked over and picked up Lyra. And then I saw her. She was small, scrawnier than me. Her face was scrunched up and angry, even in sleep. But when she woke up and saw me, her eyes went wide with recognition. Pure hatred flashed across her newborn face. "You," she thought directly at me. "How did you?" "Shut up," I shot back, keeping my mental voice flat and quiet. "They can hear us here. Keep your thoughts clean." Her face contorted with rage, but she clamped her mouth shut. My mother, oblivious, was already falling in love. "She is so tiny. What is her name?" Celeste snorted. "Doesn't have one. Name her yourself." My mother looked at my father with those pleading eyes. Marcus sighed. "Fine, but she is not coming home with us." "Of course not," my mother lied. And I knew in that moment that she would absolutely bring Lyra home within a month. So I did the only thing I could do. I started screaming. Loud, piercing, unstoppable screaming. Not just with my voice, but with my thoughts. I broadcasted pain and fear and confusion so loudly that my mother physically flinched. "Mommy, I don't feel good. Please take me home. Please." My mother looked torn, but my father stepped in. "The baby needs you. Let's go." She handed Lyra back to the nurse and carried me out. As we left, I caught Lyra's eye. She was glaring at me with pure, undisguised murder in her gaze. "You think you are so smart," she thought. I smiled a tiny, invisible smile. "I don't think, little sister. I know." Back in our room, I stopped crying immediately. My mother laughed in relief. "She just wanted her mommy," she said, kissing my forehead. Darian, who had been watching from the doorway, stepped closer. His amber eyes studied me for a long moment. Then he spoke so quietly only I could hear. "You did that on purpose." I blinked up at him with my most innocent expression. "I am just a baby. I do not know what you mean." His lips twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. "Liar," he whispered. But he did not sound angry. He sounded impressed. That night, I heard a soft tapping on the wall between our rooms. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Lyra's signal from our old life. I focused my inner voice and pushed it through the wall. "What?" Her response came back sharp and bitter. "You won this round, but I am not done with you." I yawned internally. "You were never a threat to me, Lyra. Not in our last life, not in this one. Go to sleep." Silence. Then so faint I almost missed it. "I hate you." I closed my eyes and thought back. Soft as honey. I know, but hating you would be too much work. And somewhere in the room next door, my sister screamed. The nurses rushed in. Celeste cursed, and I slept like the angel everyone thought I was. The Carter estate was less a house and more a fortress disguised in white stone and climbing roses. For the first 5 years of my life, it was my kingdom. I did not waste a single day. Survival in a reincarnation deathmatch is not about waiting for the enemy to strike. It is about building a moat so wide and filling it with crocodiles so vicious that the enemy drowns before they even see the castle walls. My best crocodile was Darian. By the time I was 3, he had transformed from a brooding, silent shadow into my personal, terrifying guardian. He still rarely spoke. He still made the household staff avoid eye contact. But around me, the ice cracked. He did not play tea party. He did not know how. But he would sit in the corner of my playroom for hours, watching me with those cold, golden eyes, tracking every movement, calculating threats that did not exist. I curated my mental broadcast carefully. If I tripped and scraped my knee, I did not cry out in pain. Instead, I projected a soft, trembling thought. I am okay. I have to be brave so Darian does not worry. Before my father could even turn his head, Darian would be there, scooping me up with impossible gentleness. His eyes would flash with a dark promise to destroy whatever had hurt me. My father, Marcus, noticed. He was a logistics magnate, a man who built empires by reading people. He was not blind to the unnatural devotion his adopted son had developed for his golden-haired toddler. It unnerved him. But as long as Darian was entirely focused on keeping me safe, Marcus allowed it. My mother, Seraphina, remained wrapped in her saintly delusions. She thought her love had healed Darian. I let her believe that. But I always knew the peace was temporary. The inevitable happened when I was 6. We were in the conservatory having breakfast when my mother answered a phone call. I watched the color drain from her face. She dropped her silver spoon. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That poor child." Across the table, Darian went completely still. His eyes locked onto me, sensing the shift in the room. Marcus lowered his newspaper. "What is it?" "It is about Celeste, the pop star. She was in a car accident last night. Drunk driving. She did not make it." "That is tragic, but why are they calling you?"
"Because of the little girl," my mother choked out, tears already falling. "She has nobody, Marcus, no family. Social services found my name in Celeste's emergency contacts." I mentally applauded Lyra's handiwork. There was no way a narcissist like Celeste had remembered my mother's name. Lyra had orchestrated this. She had placed the breadcrumbs knowing my mother's savior complex would compel her to follow them. We have to take her in, Marcus. We have the room, we have the resources. Honey, adopting a 6-year-old is a massive commitment.
I decided it was time to intervene. I set down my orange juice, widened my eyes to maximize the innocent gleam, and projected my thoughts clearly enough for both my parents and Darian to hear. Mommy is crying. The little girl has no mommy anymore. That is so sad. I want to share my toys with her so she does not have to cry alone. My mother gasped and rushed to pull me into a hug. Do you hear that, Marcus? Our daughter has the purest heart in the world. Marcus's resolve crumbled. He looked at me with soft eyes. All right, we will bring her here. Temporarily. Over my mother's shoulder, I made eye contact with Darian. He was staring at me, head tilted slightly. He knew exactly what I was doing. At 6 years old, my vocabulary and emotional manipulation were far too advanced. But Darian did not care that I was a monster in a porcelain body. He only cared that I was his monster. He gave me a microscopic nod. Message received. Threat incoming. Lyra arrived 2 days later. She looked the part of the tragic orphan perfectly. Faded black dress, messy hair, clutching a worn-out stuffed rabbit. But when she stepped into the grand foyer of the Carter estate, I saw the feral, calculating glint in her eyes. She took in the crystal chandeliers, the sweeping marble staircase, and finally she looked at me. Nice house, she pushed the thought directly into my mind. Thanks for keeping my bed warm. I did not flinch. I gave her a bright, beaming smile and broadcasted my thoughts loud enough for the entire room to hear. Wow, she's so pretty. I'm going to be the best sister ever. I hope she likes me.
My mother practically melted. Lyra, sweetheart, she cooed, kneeling down. Welcome home. This is Kaylin. She has been so excited to meet you. Lyra forced a shy, wavering smile, but she made a fatal mistake. She was not used to the telepathic rules of this house. In her previous life, she had screamed inside her head, and Darian had heard it all. For 6 years living with a neglectful pop star, she had no one to practice her mental shielding on. As she looked at my mother, her inner voice leaked out, uncontrolled and harsh. God, this woman is pathetic. Keep crying, idiot. Just hand over the money. The reaction was instantaneous. My mother physically recoiled, blinking in confusion. She was not sure if she had actually heard it or just felt something ugly. Marcus stiffened, looking at Lyra with sudden suspicion. But Darian moved. He stepped out of the shadows of the staircase, placing himself directly between me and Lyra. The temperature in the foyer seemed to drop 10 degrees. He looked down at the 6-year-old orphan with the expression of an executioner. You, he said, his voice a low, terrifying rasp. Keep your thoughts quiet, or I will remove them from your head. Lyra stumbled back, genuine terror flashing across her face. She had forgotten the monster she was dealing with. In her obsession to beat me, she had forgotten that I held the leash of the beast that had shattered her mind in our past life. Darian, Marcus barked, stepping forward. That is enough. She is traumatized. I tugged on Darian's sleeve. Big brother, do not be mad. She is just sad. Let us be nice. Darian's gaze did not soften, but he stepped back, yielding to my mental command. He did not look at Marcus. He only looked at me. As you wish, Kaylin. Lyra stared at the two of us, her chest heaving. I could see the gears turning in her head. The horrifying realization dawning. She had not walked into my house. She had walked into a trap I had spent 6 years building. Game on, little sister, I whispered into her mind, and locked her out before she could reply. The next 8 years were a masterclass in psychological warfare. By the time we were 14, the dividing lines in the Carter estate were etched in stone. To the outside world, we were the picture of philanthropic grace.
The billionaire father. The charitable mother. The angelic biological daughter. And the rescued orphan. Inside the walls, it was a cold war. Lyra was relentless. I had to give her credit. Her sheer willpower to survive and destroy me was impressive. She played the victim beautifully to the household staff, who could not read minds. She manufactured tears, staged little accidents to make me look like a bully, tried to isolate me at the elite private academy we attended. but she could not beat my mental dominance. She eventually figured out how to lock down her thoughts, putting up a wall of static so my parents could not hear her toxicity. But static is suspicious. While she gave them silence, I gave them symphonies. When Marcus came home exhausted from fighting board battles, I did not just bring him tea. I broadcasted admiration. Dad is carrying the whole world on his shoulders. I need to study harder so I can help him when I grow up. He should not have to fight alone. He fast-tracked my involvement in the company. By 15, I was sitting in on board meetings. Lyra was relegated to the sidelines, given a generous allowance, but zero actual power. Her frustration boiled over when we were 16. It was the night of the winter gala. The estate was packed with the city's elite. I was wearing a deep blue gown, standing near the orchid garden, sipping sparkling water and mentally cataloging which politicians my father needed to court. You think you are untouchable. I did not turn around. Lyra, you are interrupting my networking. She stepped beside me, dressed in a gold dress that screamed desperation. Her eyes were feverish. You have poisoned them against me. Every time I try to get close to Marcus or Serafina, you are there, playing the saint. I am a saint, I replied smoothly, projecting the thought with perfect clarity. I just happen to be a saint who plays chess while you are playing in the dirt. 2 years left, Kaylin, she whispered, her voice shaking with raw hatred. 2 years until the warden calls time. If you think I am going back to the void, you are insane. I will burn this house down with you inside it before I let you win. Is that a threat?
I pushed into her mind, my mental voice cold and heavy. It is a promise, she shoved back, her mental barrier slipping just enough for me to feel the murderous intent rolling off her. Suddenly, a hand clamped onto Lyra's shoulder. She gasped, her knees buckling slightly under the crushing pressure. Darian stepped out from the shadows of the garden. He was 22 now, a towering, lethal presence wrapped in a tailored black suit. He ran the family security and intelligence divisions, which was a polite way of saying he handled the dirty work. You are breathing her air, Darian said to Lyra, his amber eyes completely devoid of warmth.
Move. Lyra's face flushed with humiliation and terror. She wrenched herself free, glaring at me. He is a rabid dog, Kaylin. One day he will bite you, too. She turned and vanished into the crowd. Darian watched her go, his jaw tight. He pulled a white cloth from his pocket and wiped the hand that had touched her, as if wiping away disease. Thank you, Darian, I thought warmly, smiling up at him. But you should not worry about her. She is just noise. Darian looked down at me. Over the years, the strange, silent connection between us had grown into something absolute. He knew I manipulated my parents. He knew I was not an innocent angel. He knew everything. And it only made him more devoted. To Darian, the world was a rotten, chaotic place, and I was the only thing in it that made sense. I gave him purpose. I gave him something to protect. She is planning something physical, Darian said aloud, his voice a low rumble. Her thoughts are locked, but her heart rate spikes when she looks at the grand staircase. She is calculating angles. A push. A fall. I paused. You read her body language that well? I read everything that threatens you. He stepped closer, his imposing frame shielding me from the rest of the gala. Give me the word, Kaylin. Just one word. I can make her disappear. Social services will be told she ran away. The parents will mourn for a month and then forget. My breath hitched. He was entirely serious. He would kill her tonight if I asked. It was tempting. So tempting to just end the game. But I remembered the rules. By your 18th birthday, one of you will have to return. The warden had not said anything about murder. If I killed her or had her killed, it might violate the parameters of the game. I could not risk the technicality. No, I told him, projecting calm authority. We wait. Let her dig her own grave. When she strikes, we trap her in it. Darian's eyes gleamed with dark satisfaction.
Because of the little girl, my mother choked out, tears already falling. She has nobody, Marcus, no family. Social services found my name in Celeste's emergency contacts. I mentally applauded Lyra's handiwork. There was no way a narcissist like Celeste had remembered my mother's name. Lyra had orchestrated this. She had placed the breadcrumbs knowing my mother's savior complex would compel her to follow them. We have to take her in, Marcus. We have the room, we have the resources. Honey, adopting a 6-year-old is a massive commitment. I decided it was time to intervene. I set down my orange juice, widened my eyes to maximize the innocent gleam, and projected my thoughts clearly enough for both my parents and Darian to hear. Mommy is crying. The little girl has no mommy anymore. That is so sad. I want to share my toys with her so she does not have to cry alone. My mother gasped and rushed to pull me into a hug. Do you hear that, Marcus? Our daughter has the purest heart in the world. Marcus's resolve crumbled. He looked at me with soft eyes. All right, we will bring her here. Temporarily. Over my mother's shoulder, I made eye contact with Darian. He was staring at me, head tilted slightly. He knew exactly what I was doing. At 6 years old, my vocabulary and emotional manipulation were far too advanced. But Darian did not care that I was a monster in a porcelain body. He only cared that I was his monster. He gave me a microscopic nod. Message received. Threat incoming. Lyra arrived 2 days later. She looked the part of the tragic orphan perfectly. Faded black dress, messy hair, clutching a worn-out stuffed rabbit. But when she stepped into the grand foyer of the Carter estate, I saw the feral, calculating glint in her eyes. She took in the crystal chandeliers, the sweeping marble staircase, and finally she looked at me. Nice house, she pushed the thought directly into my mind. Thanks for keeping my bed warm. I did not flinch. I gave her a bright, beaming smile and broadcasted my thoughts loud enough for the entire room to hear. Wow, she's so pretty. I'm gonna be the best sister ever. I hope she likes me.
You stole my brother! You stole the parents who were supposed to adopt me in the last timeline! I did not steal anything, I said coldly. I adapted. You threw tantrums. You refused to learn how the game is played. And now you are angry that you were losing. I am not losing, she screamed, lunging at me. She was fast, fueled by 18 years of psychotic rage. But I did not move. Darian, now, I whispered into my mind. Before Lyra could close the distance, a massive shadow dropped from the roof of the pavilion. Darian landed with the silent, lethal grace of a predator. His large hand shot out, catching Lyra's wrist mid-air. The sickening crack of bone echoed over the sound of the ocean. Lyra shrieked, dropping the syringe. Darian twisted her arm behind her back, driving her to her knees on the stone floor. He placed a heavy boot squarely on her spine, pinning her down. He did not even look out of breath. He looked down at her with absolute disgust. You really thought, Darian murmured, his voice sending chills down my spine, that I would ever let you be alone with her. Lyra sobbed in agony, thrashing against his grip. It was useless. You psycho! You monster! You ruined my life in the past and you are doing it again! Darian tilted his head. I do not know what you are talking about, but I know I am going to throw you off this cliff. Wait, I commanded. I checked my watch. 11:55. 5 minutes left. I walked over to Lyra, my heels clicking softly against the stone. I knelt down so I was eye level with her. She glared at me, her eyes bloodshot, her face streaked with tears of pain and fury. You think you have won, she laughed bitterly, spitting on the ground near my dress. The warden said one of us has to return. If neither of us is dead by midnight, he takes us both, or he flips a coin. You did not beat me, Kaylin. You just stalled. Oh, Lyra, I sighed, brushing a strand of hair out of her sweaty face. She flinched as if I had boned her. You still do not understand the rules of the game. The warden did not say one of us had to die. He said one of us had to return. What is the difference? She shrieked. The difference, I whispered, opening my mind completely, dropping every shield, every barrier, and flooding the area with the full, terrifying weight of my consciousness.
I did not just project to Lyra. I projected to the entire estate, but I did not send my own thoughts. Using the mental dominance I had cultivated for 18 years, I reached into Lyra's fractured, chaotic mind. I grabbed hold of her darkest, most venomous thoughts. Her hatred for my parents, her disgust for the charity cases, her murderous intent toward me, and I acted as an amplifier. I broadcasted her thoughts. Suddenly, inside the mansion, my mother dropped her champagne glass. Marcus grabbed his head. Every staff member, every person who possessed the genetic quirk to hear thoughts was suddenly bombarded with Lyra's unfiltered demonic screeching. I hate them. I want to kill Kaylin. I want to drain the old man's accounts. I wish they would all burn. Lyra gasped, her eyes widening in sheer horror as she realized what I was doing. Stop. Stop it. What are you doing? I am showing them who you really are, I whispered softly. I am giving them the truth. In the distance, the back doors of the mansion burst open. Marcus and several security guards came running toward the cliffside, drawn by the psychic distress beacon. My mother was behind them, weeping hysterically, the illusion of her sweet rescued orphan completely shattered. It is over, Lyra, I said, my voice barely audible over the wind. They hear you. They know you are entirely, completely rejected by this world. There is no place for you here. Nobody loves you. Nobody wants you. 11:58. Lyra broke. The realization that she had been utterly exposed, that there was no coming back from this, shattered whatever fragile sanity she had left. She stopped fighting Darian. She went limp, her mind collapsing inward, consumed by a black hole of despair. I want to leave, her inner voice whimpered, a pathetic, broken sound. I do not want to be here anymore. Let me go back. Just let me go back to the dark. I looked up at the sky. 11:59. The air around us suddenly stopped moving. The crashing of the ocean froze mid-splash. The wind died. Darian froze above Lyra like a statue. The guards running toward us stopped mid-stride. Time simply ceased to exist. A shadow separated itself from the darkness of the pavilion.
It did not walk, it simply arrived. The warden wore a tailored suit that matched the abyss. His eyes were like dying stars. He looked at the frozen scene. Darian pinning Lyra, me kneeling gracefully on the stone, and the shattered girl begging to leave. He clapped his hands slowly. The sound echoed like thunder. Magnificent. His voice resonated directly in my soul. A flawless victory. No blood spilled by your hand, yet your opponent begs for the void. You broke her spirit using the very weapon I gave you. I stood up, smoothing the front of my blue gown. I offered him a polite, practiced curtsy. I play to win, your grace. The warden chuckled, a sound like grinding tectonic plates. He looked down at Lyra. She is broken. She has forfeited her claim to this reality. As agreed, the winner remains. He reached out a pale, impossibly long finger and tapped Lyra on the forehead. She did not scream. She did not dissolve. She simply folded in on herself, shrinking into a pinprick of absolute darkness before vanishing completely. The space where she had been was empty. Enjoy your life, Kaylin Carter, the warden said, turning his dying star eyes onto me. I suspect you will rule this world long before you return to mine. He stepped backward into the shadow, and reality snapped back into motion. The waves crashed, the wind howled. Darian stumbled forward slightly, his boot hitting the empty stone where Lyra had just been. He blinked, looking down in confusion, then looked up at me. His protective instincts immediately flared. He scanned the perimeter, his hand going to his concealed weapon. Where is she? Darian demanded, his voice thick with adrenaline. Kaylin, what happened? I looked at him, the psycho-adopted brother who had destroyed my sister in a past life, and the man who had burned down the world for me in this one. He did not remember the time freeze. He just knew a threat had vanished. She is gone, Darian, I said softly, stepping into his arms. I buried my face in his chest, projecting a wave of gentle, reassuring warmth into his mind. It is over. We are safe now. She ran away. Darian's tense muscles slowly relaxed. He wrapped his massive arms around me, burying his face in my hair, holding me with that perfectly impossible gentleness.
She is gone, he echoed, his voice vibrating against my cheek. I have got you. Nobody is ever going to hurt you. Marcus and the guards burst into the pavilion, flashlights cutting through the dark. "Kaylin," he shouted, out of breath, looking wildly around the empty stone floor. "Where is Lyra? What was that? That voice in our heads?" I pulled back from Darian and looked at my father. I let a single perfect tear roll down my cheek. "I am sorry, Daddy," I cried softly, letting my voice shake. "She tried to push me, and then she just snapped. She said she hated us all, and she ran down the trail toward the highway. She said she never wants to see us again." Marcus's face hardened. The psychic venom he had just experienced was enough to kill any lingering affection he had for the orphan. He pulled me into a fierce embrace. Let her go. Good riddance. She was poison in this house. Thank God you were safe, sweetheart. Thank God. My mother arrived moments later, collapsing into tears, apologizing profusely for bringing a monster into our home. I comforted her, playing the magnanimous, traumatized angel to perfection. Over my father's shoulder, I met Darian's eyes. He was watching me with that unreadable, intense gaze. He knew I was lying about the trail. He knew there was no way Lyra could have escaped his grip. He knew I was a manipulator, a liar, and a predator draped in silk. And as I smiled a tiny, invisible smile just for him, his lips twitched, the faintest crack in his armor. He did not care. I was his empress, and the throne was finally permanently mine.